G'day guys, this video is all about milling up these boards. Now it ran a lot longer than I was expecting, so I've gone down into the first comment down below and you'll find a bunch of timestamps breaking the video up into the different sections so that you can look at what you want to look at if you need to look at any of it. Enjoy. So this here will be the material that I'll be using to build this bench. Now this material has been sitting out in the rain and the sun and the mud for about 10 years, so it's very weathered on the outside, and even here you can see that there's a lot of face checking through here. Now it's terrible material, but for a workbench it's structurally sound, and well, because it's terrible material it didn't cost me anything, so it's perfect material to use for a workbench. It's good solid hardwood that was cheap and free to get, so that's what I'd recommend using. Now I'd recommend, instead of rushing out and just buying material for it, because there's quite a lot of material used in a joinery workbench, I'd recommend just waiting and just scrounging bits and pieces from demolitions here and there from the old framing material, so you can get some old hardwoods like I've got here. Now a lot of these boards, they're F17 boards, which is a structural rating of hardwood, and they've all been laminated. Now because these laminations have been sitting out in the sun and the rain and the heat and whatnot for about 10 years, I don't trust any of those laminations. They're probably going to be good enough, but what I'm going to do is I'm just going to rip them all first and I'm going to re-laminate everything. So this is a good reason why I don't trust those laminations. You can see that there's a lamination right there, but after 10 years being in the sun, that glue has just given up the ghost and it's dead. Alright, so here I have my longer boards for the top and the longer rails. Now, these skinnier pieces here, that's all solid hardwood. There's no laminations through that. So I can just get one 75mm strip out of that and either turf the rest or join that offcut with this offcut and get another 75mm strip if I need it. So there's always that option. But here on these wider boards, you can see that this one's laminated here, 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 and here. Now I'm not going to trust any of those laminations. So what I'll do is I'll joint the bottom face of this board here, and then I'll send the other face through the thicknesser to give me two parallel faces. Then I'll rip this joint here, 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 and here, turn them all on the side, and then join them again with PVA glue, Type Bond Original, or Type Bond 2 I think I'll use. So now things get a little bit serious, and these sticks here, they're for the legs. Now two of these sticks will make one leg, so I'll glue those together. Now when I glue these together, obviously I want 4 legs. When I glue them together, I don't want to just glue one leg at a time. I want to put all legs in the one set of clamps, so leg 1, leg 2, leg 3, leg 4, and clamp them all together. So what I could do, or a common mistake is, you put this face over the jointer and that face over the jointer, you make the two parallel faces and you can join them together like that. But then you leave this face just as it is, and it's not straight, it's not flat, it's not anything. And then you put them leg 1, leg 2, leg 3, leg 4. What happens is this face doesn't match the other face on leg 2, and you'll end up having pressure here but no pressure there, and pressure there and no pressure there. So what you want to do is you want to joint one face and then send the other face through the thicknesser, just for the hell of it, just to make it flat so that it matches this jointed face, so that one leg puts pressure onto the next leg, onto the next leg and onto the next leg. Otherwise you'll get gaps in your joints. So this will be the most important point of this video, on this individual video anyway, both for the legs and for the bench top. Because it's a very wide lamination, what happens is if I put all these clamps along the bottom and I squeeze them together, it squeezes the bottom edge really tight together, but it also opens up the top a little bit. So what you need to do, instead of squeezing all of these 4 clamps on the bottom together first, you put one on the bottom and one over the top. So that way it brings the two surfaces together nice and flat. It doesn't bring them together like this and then try to close the top over. Because what happens is if you got it like that and you try to get the top to close over, you'll get it pretty close, but you won't get it all the way, and you'll end up with a really fat glue seam across the top. So you want to bring these together nice and flat together, not bring it up like that and then try to force that down. Now I'm going to put glue on both sides here, because it doesn't really matter if I put too much glue on, it's just going to squeeze out. And if I don't put enough glue on, well, it's not going to be enough, and that's just bad practice. Now, a lot of those cracks in the seams of the bad timbers that I've got here, that'll fill up with glue from the hydraulic pressure that I'm about to create by clamping it together, and that will not only glue those cracks together, it stabilises the timber and makes everything really good. All these ends. Alright, so oops. Start to bring up the pressure there, then bring another clamp over the top. Even here I can see that those joints just opened up a little bit. That's because there's glue inside there, and so it's no longer a flat surface. Well, it sort of is a flat surface, but it's got glue in the way. So you bring them together. Now we always clamp centre out, so I've done that one, so now I'll do this one. I don't want to do that one because when you clamp that, it opens that end up. Now, since there's so much glue inside there, you really want to crank down hard on these clamps to make sure that any excess glue actually gets squeezed out, and you're not just putting pressure on a layer of glue. You want the timber on timber with just glue inside the timber itself, not between the timber. You get a lot of arguments about that, but anybody that says that I'm wrong, well, they can argue with me, I suppose. I'm not going to say anything bad. Now, even though I'm cranking down on these clamps as hard as I can, it's actually not that much pressure. It's feeling the power of my wrist. Like, I'm not the Incredible Hulk. So and that'll do it. See, now you've got a nice even glue seam all the way across. If I lift him up, same on the bottom there. It's making my clamps a hell of a mess, but that's okay. Now I could clean up those glue seams if I want, but because there's so much meat on the width here, I'm just going to take it over to the jointer and joint it down and just clean it off easier using the machine power rather than using a wet rag. I use the wet rag to clean my hands. Here we go. So this is one of the boards that I've got now. Sitting on my sliding panel saw slider, this is a fairly flat surface. Now you can see that there's a fair amount of bow in this board here, and even with one finger I can press that bow straight out of the board, and this is where it becomes very difficult to straighten this onto the jointer, because it takes only a small amount of pressure downwards to press this flat. When I try to put that over the jointer with pressure down, well, I'm not actually straightening it, I'm actually forcing this into submission, putting it into a straight orientation, and then pushing it over the cutter, and then as soon as I let go it springs back up again. So I'll show you how to get around that. So the standard way of using the jointer is to put your timber on at the front, push it through, and then you joint the entire face. But the problem there is that when you get to this level here, you basically got no choice but to put pressure down in the middle and then push it through. And as you do that, you're actually pressing that bow flat, which engages the cutter, which machines the face. But then when you let go of it again, it springs back and becomes bowed again. So what you need to do, or what I do, instead of starting back here and then pushing it through, what I'll do is, when the cutter's spinning, I lower it down in the middle there. Now because this timber is bowed, it's not actually going to cut when I lower it down, so I can lower it down like that and you won't hear the cutter engage. And so I can just lower it down and let go. It's not going to go anywhere. From there, I can simply put one hand on the back edge here and then push it forward. Now, I can put a lot of pressure down here because I know that that back point is actually engaged with the table. But that point over here, that's actually sitting up above the table, and it's not being pressed flat because I don't have any pressure on there. So I can simply push this through, and what that will do, it'll nibble away a small amount of material at this back edge. And then I can look down it and see, well, it's still a little bit curved. So I'll come back, I'll try again, push it through, pull it back, have a look, get it pretty close. I might even, well I won't, it's not might, I will. I'll even flip it around and I'll do the same thing. I'll put that on there and I'll push it through maybe a couple of times. Have a look. Now once I can see that it's pretty straight, because this isn't going to get it gun barrel straight, like it wouldn't be any good for a gun barrel, but for fine furniture this is going to be very, very, very straight. I'll just look at it and I'll say, well, that's pretty straight right now. Now that I know that it's pretty straight, it's not going to have that bow in there, so when I put pressure down into the middle, I'm not going to be pressing that bow out of it because I've already taken the bow out of it. So what I can do there, standing back here, because I don't have an in-feed support or an out-feed support, I can support the back edge using just one arm, hand in the middle there, and then I can find where it sits flat. So right there. From there, I want to make sure that that remains in contact with the table surface, and then I'll go through. Come through, keep pushing, trying to maintain a constant pressure down, and then from here, that supports itself at the back, then I simply push it on through there. Now, I'm going to put the guards back on. I'll show you what I'm doing there, and that will get me very, very close to straight. It won't be gun barrel straight, it won't be straight like I've got a jointer plane and planed it when I'm doing edge laminations. But for this, because I've got lamination after lamination after lamination after lamination, they'll all conform to each other and overcome any bowing or twisting that the one next to it has. But if we can get them all pretty straight to begin with, it helps us out a great deal. And if you've got two people to do this, it helps because that way you can put somebody on the tail and they can support the weight as it hangs out the back. Now that's one thing about this method here, is that you need to move your guard far enough away that it constantly exposes the cutter so that you can lower down on top of it. Personally, that's the way I normally run these jointers. It's not the correct way of running the jointer. The correct way is to have this raised up and pushed all the way over. I hate that. I absolutely hate it. I'm not going to do it. I don't care what anyone says. It's just not going to happen. So let's get everything turned on and let's get this done. Cut about from here back, so only cutting that lower point of the curve. Gradually gets longer and longer as we get straighter and straighter. Actually, it needs a little bit more of that edge. So now there's a little bit of twist, but if I just push it down there, you can see that it's pretty straight along that bottom edge there. If I do that, there's not much movement there at all, so it's pretty straight. So now I can put the whole length over the jointer to try to take out that little bit of twist. It's not much, not too bad, but it's pretty good. And so there it is. It's nicely jointed. It's fairly straight. It's not perfect, but it's pretty bloody good. And when I put it down there, it is, well, there's just no gap anymore. So it's actually straight. Now this is 2.2 meters long, or 2250 long, and my infeed table of my jointer is only 700 mil. So it only gets me to be about there. So if you look on the forums and whatnot, you'll see that there's a lot of questions and commentary about how it's pretty hard to flatten timber longer than the infeed table of your jointer. Well, no it's not. You're just seeing how pretty easy it is. It takes a little bit of time, takes a little bit of skill and experience, but that just happens after practice. So give it a go. Now if you're not comfortable doing it, especially the way that I push it with the heel of my hand on the back edge there, if you're not comfortable doing that, by all means don't do it. Get yourself some push pads and whatnot, but just try not to, when you're trying to flatten these back corners, try not to put a push pad here. Basically, I was doing it with one arm. I was just pushing it like that. So, because I can only put pressure where the timber contacts the table. If the timber isn't in contact with the table over here, I can't put pressure there. So I just do it one-handed, push it through, and it buzzes from here to there. Second pass, it might buzz from here to there. Third pass, it might buzz from here to there, so on and so forth. So after showing you guys my technique of flattening and straightening longer length boards on my short bed jointer, I've gone ahead and straightened the rest of the boards that I need for the top. Then I've sent them all through the thicknesser. Now, when I sent them through the thicknesser, I didn't aim for a specific thickness. All I've aimed for was 2 flat faces, as thick as possible. So they're all random thickness at the moment. That's okay. Now I'm just going to rip them to width so that they're all a common width, and then I can set up to glue this thing up. So after ripping these to width, I've set them up in the layout that I'm going to glue them up as. Now, when I've done that, I've made sure that I've picked the best faces for the 2 outside faces here. Now this will be the gap, which will be on the gap. You don't really see that face, but this face here, that's going to be the outside face. That'll be where I have my front vise over here, the tail vise there. That'll be my side of the bench. And then when you guys are watching on the camera, you'll primarily see that side of the bench there, which is, it's actually that face there. That whole block needs to turn around. So you're going to see that board there. You can see that there's gum veins running all the way down the length. I don't like gum veins, but it's a natural defect, so at least it's natural. It's not splitting, which is face checking, which it's natural, but it's kind of induced by sitting out in the sun. It's not induced just by the tree growing the way that it grows. Same with this one. There's some gum vein through it as well as splitting on the end closest to the camera there. Now I'm hoping that when I rip this to width afterwards, I'm going to remove most of those splits because they're only very shallow. I should be able to get most of them gone. So now I'm ready to glue these up, but not actually. The problem is I've got, this one's 312 millimeters wide and this one is 314 millimeters wide. Now my thicknesser can only take 305 millimeters wide. So if I glued them up now, I'd have to glue them up, let the glue dry, take them out of the clamps, and then I'd have to rip this to be skinny enough just to fit through the thicknesser. That's going to be a major pain in the butt because when I glue them up, it's not going to be a nice flat level surface like it is now. It's going to be up and down a little bit, which makes it very difficult to rip on the saw. So what I actually want to do is I want to make sure that this fits into the thicknesser straight after I've glued it up without having to put it onto the saw. That way I can glue it up, let the glue dry, take it out of the clamps, put it through the thicknesser, get it flat top and bottom, take it over to the saw, rip one edge, turn it around, rip the other edge to width to my 300mm final size, and I'll just be done. So I need to take, get 7mm off this board and 9mm off this board. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 laminations there. So if I take 1mm off each board here, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. nine laminations there. So if I take 1 millimeter off each of these boards, it'll reduce my overall size by enough. Alright, so I'm all ready to go. All I need to do is get glue between each of these laminations and pick this whole thing up and put it into the clamps there. Interesting, my hand's gone orange. Look at it. Look, I'm all orange. This is type 1 too. I wonder what the hell that is. It's weird though. So now with these two tops glued up and they're well and truly dry, I can go ahead and machine up all of the rest of the boards to their final sizes. I'm not going to machine the tops just yet. I'm just going to let them sit there as they are now. If they want to move and warp, whatever they want to do, they can do that. And then after they've done that, and when I need to use them, because I don't need them for a while, I'll put them over the jointer, put them through the thicknesser, and they'll be nice and flat, ready to go, just as I need them. Now, I'm going to machine these to the sizes in my plans, which brings me to a problem that I've just found with my plans. I need this board here. Using the template here, I've gone through and highlighted all of these lines with black texture, and I've also drawn in all of the tenons and the side rails and the tenons into the side rails and whatnot. And this here is where I found the problem. I had called for that height of that side rail to be the same height as this, which is correct, except that that's a tapered cut. So this block of timber actually needs to be wider so that I can put it on the saw and rip it to that angle. Now here's a block of timber that I've glued up because I didn't have any material wide enough to get this one. So I've glued up a couple of sticks like that, just 3 laminations there. And as you can see, I've only, it's going to be really close. It actually needs to be an extra 3 or 4 millimeters wider. So I'm still going to use this piece, and if I can't get it perfect, it'll just be imperfect on this bottom edge, which doesn't really matter because by the time I round this corner over, it'll probably be okay anyway. But I've updated the plans and there'll be a new file on my website ready to be downloaded for anybody that's purchased it so far or anybody that's going to purchase it. It'll be ready to go by the time this video is live. So I apologize for that. I'm only human. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and machine up all of these legs, then these rails, then the top rails, then the side rails. We'll get it all done and that'll round out this probably very long video. Alright, and so I stand this one up here, stand this one up there. So I've got 2 legs, 2 bottom rails, 2 top rails, a side bottom rail, a side top rail, side bottom rail, side top rail, and 2 legs. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm just looking at these 2 legs stacked on top of each other. I'm thinking, kind of does look good being that thick and chunky. It's a lot of extra material though. I could do it, but I'm not gonna do it. I've already designed it to be half of that. It's strong enough to make them thicker than that. It's just burning material for the sake of burning material. I don't want to be doing that. Now, with regards to burning material, I was saying that these lower side rails, I'm only just going to have enough width out of that. Well, I didn't actually get there. So right there, I just didn't have enough material on this corner here on the bottom rail there. So I've just missed it just by about 2.5 millimeters. That's going to be good enough the way that that is. It doesn't really matter. I'll put a little bit of a round over on the bottom edge there anyway, because that would have been a very sharp corner. By the time I round it over, it's basically going to be the same. So I'm not going to fix it. It is a mistake. Shame on me. I should have known better. I eventually did know better and I fixed the plans. Don't worry about that. They're all uploaded. You can download a new copy of that whenever you like. Alright guys, so that's it. I'm done. I'm finished. Everything's been milled up except for these 2 top slabs. I haven't bothered to mill those to final size yet because I don't need to work on them for quite some time. So they can sit there out of harm's way. If they want to bow, twist, warp, do whatever they want, they can do that while they're still oversized. And then when I need them, I'll quickly machine them up and I'll be working on a dead flat surface. So that's that. Now these are some of the boards that I've ended up with. You can see that if I zoom you in nice and close, you can see there's some black lines through that board. That's some really minor face checking, but the other side's pretty clean, pretty nice. So that'll be one of the show surfaces. This is a better example. So here, lots of black line, lots of surface checking. It's not great, pretty ugly. Flip him around and it's near perfect. So that's what I've ended up with most of this board, with most of these boards, which is what I was expecting or hoping for. At least I was hoping for one good face and the other face that gets hidden in behind the inside of the frame. Doesn't really matter. So anyway, if you got this far, thanks very much for watching. I'll be back with the next video where we mortise out these legs. See yous.